Okay.
I hope Detroit does something.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to get started. So welcome to Council Committee of the Whole. It is November 4th, 2024, 6 p.m. Addie, would you call the roll?
Posh.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
Maddox.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Petrus.
Here.
Huda.
Here.
Cobb.
Here.
All right. Our first order of business is executive session. So would somebody like to read the Larson?
I move that we go into executive session to prepare for preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees or their representatives concerning such employees' compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
So moved.
There's that a second? Sorry. Okay.
There was a second, yeah. I do have one concern before we go into to executive session, and that is that the people we need to be in executive session with are walking in the door. So that worked out. Okay, so go ahead and call the roll, Annie.
Cobb.
Aye.
Kuda.
Aye.
Petrus.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Russell.
Aye.
Posh.
Aye.
So we'll be coming out in about 15 minutes. Okay, we're back from executive session and we're going to continue on with the agenda. Next item is the legislative review, and I will start with resolution 203-2024, which is a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. And this is for our part in the Doan Brook Restoration Park improvement. Now, this has the potential to bring $500,000 to Cleveland Heights to help with our 1/3 of the Doan Brook Park. What's the total that we have to spend again on that, Mayor, do you know?
Offhand, I don't.
Let's see,
See if I can pull it.
I'd say it's between
2.5 and 3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere in there. 2, 5.
so this would be, a nice chunk of that. Anybody have any questions?
I'm speaking along those lines, for the additional city funds, will we see some of those funds requested in the 2025 budget under planning and development or?
Yes. Now, I will say there is a possibility that the sewer district's contributions to this project may work for the match for this. But in the event that they don't, we still have to and should put money aside in next year's budget and then again in the 2026 budget in order to sort of have money there for us to expend for our portion of these amenities.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Moving on to resolution 204. This is for snow and ice equipment acquisition from Brine Works. Any questions here?
The use of brine on the roads would we have access to what the composition of that brine is? In terms of what chemicals or what additives are going to go into that will be on the roads?
Yeah, I believe so. And I don't think that it is, much more than sort of a salt solution that just does a better job of pre-treating the roads. So it's my understanding is that it's not some complex chemical, combination that will have, more negative impact than the salt that we use now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Is this the first year we've used this?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to 205, resolution 205, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with GPD Group for the construction management services relating to Clarendon and Edgerly Waterline Replacement Project. I noticed this was a little bit later. We had anticipated it being late summer, but I know things happen. That was the only thing that any questions on that? All right, 206. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Enke Landscape Architecture Design Services. It's designed for public spaces and streetscapes in the Noble and North and South Taylor Road areas. And this is an amount not to exceed $130,000 allocated from ARPA and CDBG funds. Yes.
It's great to see that this particular corporation will be asking for community engagement. I was just curious, do you think the design will be created as if there's no old Hillside Dairy there because it's gone because we got the money to demolish?
You know, I hadn't really considered that, sort of incorporating the lack of a building there into the plan. But I don't know necessarily that it will have that much of an impact, just because, and this is the reason why. The dairy is actually fronts on Warrensville. And so the remainder of that particular parcel that fronts on Noble, I don't think that it should have that much of an impact, if any, on the streetscaping in that short section of it.
Thank you.
You know,
It does say conceptual street design for the Noble Warrensville Center Mayfield commercial node, so that's why.
I don't know, Director, do you have any further insight about that? Please feel free.
Yeah, this is gonna be sort of like an on-call contract,
Sure.
so we can, I think we wrote it and they wrote it generally enough that if there's something you want them to look at specifically,
Okay.
we can do that, so certainly it would be able to do that, should we.
Thank you.
yeah, because I think once that building comes down on Noble, you'll actually see where all of the trees and things are stored.
Well, I do know, and just for council's hopefully sense of comfort on this, part of our expectation is, you know, in the demolition of the dairy, we do want to create landscaping screening in that area where the frontage will be lost along Warrensville, so that it can at least mitigate some of that concern as well. And that's sort of in association with the demolition project itself.
I mean, I'll just say I'm particularly pleased about this because, I mean, one of the things we wanted to do with ARPA funds, and not just for the commercial districts, but in this case, was have people be able to see something that's, you know, like the actual benefit from these ARPA funds, and I think we'll be able to do that. So resolution 207, this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with UBIZ Venture Capital for program management services of the Small Business Support Program. So this is for is this for a consultant? So I understand this. I'm sorry, I'm kind of looking through this.
UBIZ would be the sort of the agency that would manage the program, the grant fund. I don't know, could you give some more detail about sort of how we're doing that?
So if you remember, we split up the allocation for the small business grant program to an initial third-party amount that we felt could get done as soon as possible, and then a longer-term program that the city would work on over the next couple of years. So this is $300,000 for that immediate grant program, which would be third-party So once we encumber this with them, then we're good for ARPA, and then they can work on getting that out to businesses within our community.
This is for the businesses.
Yeah.
Yes, oh yeah, I see.
It speaks to outcome tracking and reporting, so they're gonna be doing data gathering. Will council have access to any reports that come out of their work?
Sure.
Thank you.
That's so funny. That was in my margin too. All right, very good.
President, a couple of
Yes,
questions.
oh, please, sorry.
How did we get to UBIZ versus any other folks that submitted proposals?
So we had, let's see, what's the number here, total?
It's hard to hear him.
We had 5 responses total. And they had the combination of the experience of running these programs, having a game plan, which is in the proposal, and being local. So we got a really good proposal from Maryland, we got a really good proposal from New Jersey, but we felt like having somebody who's here affiliated with the Urban League really made the most sense. So they were really like the cream of the crop, even though we had some other good respondents.
And from my perspective, the connection with the Urban League was extremely important because we can go through this process, but then in the course of going through this process, making connections between our small businesses and organizations like the Urban League, that's going to be important for long-term sustainability of those businesses. That's why the local connection is important.
Does this, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then I'm looking at page 9 of their proposal, the budget allocation. How locked in is this budget allocation? So for example, they're talking about 12 grants at $20,000 each. Is there flexibility there if it turns out that, we wanted to do $5,000 or $10,000 grants?
Yeah, absolutely, but but the contract hasn't been formalized yet, but in there we will have a conversation about some flexibility, because I don't think we ever decided upon what was that right amount.
Correct.
Okay.
Is it 20,000, 10,000, or 5?
Because like $10,000 for marketing and outreach seems a little bit high to me. Also, the administrative fee of $30,000. The contract that we're being asked to approve is $60,000. Is that $60,000 different from this $30,000 in administrative fees?
So the 60,000 is the 30,000 of administrative fees plus marketing.
Okay.
Patient review, monitoring.
So it's 1, 2.
Everything that
2,
is
3,
in
4.
direct small business grants. All the rest of it is the administrative.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is the 300,000 separate from the administrative fees?
No.
So 300,000 is what you've allocated.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
240 will be available for the grants themselves.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, it's right there, yeah. All right, hearing nothing else, I'm gonna move on to resolution 208. It's authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with OHM Advisors for traffic consulting services for South Taylor Road, the Diet Project traffic study. Any questions about this? So it's $46,000 for the traffic study, and this would come out of ARPA funds.
We just want to make sure we.
All right, ordinance 209. And this was also on first reading, but yes, okay.
We are hoping for first reading passage.
For passage, yeah, sorry, I see that it's all on all the first readings are under first reading for passage. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into one or more installment payment contracts and related agreements in order to finance certain energy conservation improvements pursuant to section 71702. And this is regarding the Leopardo. And I noticed that the rate that we're hoping to lock in per our previous discussion was 4.2.
We're still looking at 4.2. We put 5 in there, down from I think 6.1.
It was 6.1, and at the request of the council, we met previously, we restricted that a little further.
Yeah.
Got less nervous. Thank you, appreciate that.
Now, Council President,
Yes,
we do have, I don't know, did.
Yep, Bill just sent it over and I was asking him if he was printing them or not, so.
We discovered something that we wanted to make sure made it into the ordinance.
yeah.
I don't know if you are prepared to speak about it, or if we should wait till the law director returns in order to provide some context.
It's just a finding that it's a determination that the council has to make with respect to the amount of funds that need to be repaid within the first 2 years of the contract. The whole idea being that it's in there to help control interest payments by requiring that a certain amount be paid as soon as possible. And so it's going to be 20% that's going to be paid of the contract costs within the first 2 years. But in reality, the actual costs of all the improvements should be paid in full to Leopardo by,
Substantial completion, we're expecting to be November of 2025. So when construction will be done, we'll do progress payments throughout the period. The contract itself includes the discussion of the 20% down payment that we've talked about. That's for all of the design fees and ordering of the equipment. That will happen at closing of the financing, so in a couple of weeks. So that's why we went with the 20% amount there. We know we're gonna hit that, assuming we close on everything timely.
So basically, just Cliff's Notes version of this, I can assuredly say that this changes nothing substantively. But it's a requirement of state law that we have this in this ordinance so that we can.
Yes, we will do a substitution.
Okay.
We'll do a substitution.
That's what he's working on now.
Yes.
And how do we monitor the savings that we get, versus what we pay?
So I know that we've got a pretty extensive, what is it,
MNV
The
report.
measurement verification process. So I can speak to that if you.
Yeah, please.
So during the construction period, so that will be before any payments are due for the financing. We'll be collecting those savings to make that first payment. We call that first portion of it the construction period, when that's substantially complete. So we're expecting November of this time next year to have construction substantially complete. We'll come in and do the full audit again and show you all of that paperwork, that trail from the budget, all the line items where we're hitting the savings and how they're being achieved. And then annually, we'll do that process over again, the measurement and verification report that gets submitted to you, to the mayor and to the state, to achieve those savings goals.
That seems reasonable. Josh?
Does this version of the contract include streetlights?
Yes, so there has been no change to the scope items that you guys saw in the last big presentation we did. The only change that we made when we tightened up the scope was to exclude any work at Kane Park that was previously already being handled by the other appropriation.
Like the roof?
Yeah, like the roof, exactly. So we wanted to make sure we were clear on that, but everything else is in. Actually, when we got finalized cost, they were a little bit tighter than they were when we presented to you, so lower project costs and the savings actually increased. So we have a better project. Today, we're here to do this final step for the financing aspect. Our interested lenders is requiring some of this to be brought before the council for the final approval. And we are hopeful, as Mayor said, that we can have passage on the first reading so we can lock in this interest rate because it is very competitive in the market right now.
So does the roof, for example, cover part of that down payment since we've already paid for that, or is that just?
That will be part of our project, whatever scope has been determined to be part of the original allocation with the design build company. That scope has been removed. And so the 20% really goes towards the design, development, and ordering of equipment. It's in all of our standard contracts.
And you
that are
mentioned
close.
where that 20% comes from at Clovis.
It's really for the full design and implementation process of the project itself. So the full engineering and design of everything. So we will start doing the project as equipment is ordered, as it comes in. Streetlights will be a component of that. But we'll be ready to start construction in the spring, early spring, and everything should be wrapped up by November, as I mentioned. So the first initial one is just the 20% down payment, and then going forward, there'll be progress billings. So there will be somebody we'll have to determine on the staff who will be in charge of monitoring and verifying that the work is done. And you'll be able to see as the invoices come to council exactly where that progress is being made.
All right, very good. So, any other questions on that? Resolution 210, this is to authorize an amendment to an agreement with Bricker Graydon. This is our legal consultant now for our ARPA funds, not to exceed $50,000. The first amendment to the engagement letter will be in an amount not to exceed a total of $150,000. What's the hourly rate for Bricker Graydon? Do you know that? Or is it just
It's in the
looking at the law
letter.
director?
Is it what?
No, I'm just saying I was looking at the law director.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there.
400 to 375.
Yeah.
370, I see it. Okay. And it's necessary.
Just a quick question, since it's declared in here that it's already budgeted, which fund will be used for that? Which,
Well, it should be coming out of 241, I believe is the original fund.
thanks, out of ARPA?
Yeah, we can pay for the administrative expenses.
Okay,
I mean, that's what we did with Guidehouse.
I understand that, but was it on our presentation, the breakout for paying
It was.
Brinker on the ARPA presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Bosch?
Well, I mean, compared to Guidehouse, we're getting a good value. So, I mean, it's too bad that we're paying for it twice though.
Well, yeah, I mean, we would have had to have extended the contract anyway. I'm not saying we should have, but,
Maybe not.
well,
You mean Guidehouse?
I'm just saying Guidehouse was used up. I mean, as far as the money, we had, I think it was 225 or
250.
250, okay.
That was, you're correct, Mr. President, that was depleted and the conversation had been, some additional authorization to get through the period that this will get the city through. So this is actually not duplicative. The amendment is not.
I mean, do we have to keep Bricker through 2026? I mean, is that?
I think that the belief is to make sure that all of our compliance reporting obligations are satisfied, that it's worthwhile investment. And you're not, the city is not obligated to spend the entire $100,000 if the work isn't there.
Yeah.
Mr. President,
Oh,
do you expect that this would get us through the end of the engagement?
Yes, yeah. I know it's the number I threw out in a meeting when I was surprised by the question, but we went back and revisited it with Bricker and it seems like the right number.
all right, ordinance 211 is the grant approval of the city's tentative labor agreements with the Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association for the period commencing retroactively to April 1st of 2024 through March 31st of 2027. We briefed both last month and today on this. Any questions or comments? The rest are second readings. Resolution 197, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Classic Ford of Madison for the acquisition of two 2024 Ford F-350 one-ton regular cab trucks. I feel like I'm doing an advertisement. And then resolution 198, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with McQueen Equipment LLC for the acquisition of two 7.5 yard 50/50 split body easy dump direct truck mounts. Wow. That's for refuse and recycling department. And, yes, please. Oh,
Are these two new garbage trucks?
No. The,
dump trucks.
yeah, these are, our garbage trucks are,
The big giant.
yeah, much larger. But these, I believe, might be able to pull up an image for you.
No, that's not necessary. I was just wondering if it was the shell for the garbage trucks.
No, it's like those ones that have like the flat bed on the back that lift up and dump off the back. Yeah.
Gonna mount
Yeah.
those to that, yeah, but that's.
They're gonna mount that to the trucks.
So it's, okay, so it's like for the large pickup,
Bulk pickup?
bulk pickup.
Very large pickup, but actually the bulk pickup trucks have additional equipment that
The arms.
actually grab so not exactly the same. I'm gonna try to find an image to shoot your way.
You don't need to. I'm good.
I assume they will have various uses.
And the last resolution, this is also second reading, 199. The resolution we read 2 weeks ago, proclaiming the city of Cleveland Heights a safe haven for gender affirming healthcare. So that is all they wrote. Anything else on any of the legislation? All right, we'll move on to the next
Yes.
item on the agenda, recap of the Ohio Municipal League Conference. So let's see, that was Addie, and Gail, and Rita, and myself. Not last week, week before last. Yeah, down in Columbus. Maybe I'll do one and I'll take turns, with anything you want to comment on. So the first conference I attended was on the state of home rule in Ohio. Not a pretty picture. Basically saying we kind of don't have it, and that the state Supreme Court has used this power of statewide concern language as kind of a catch-all to, we really can't let cities have too much home rule because there's this bigger picture that needs to supersede our authority, our home rule authority, which in some cases is really a shame. I brought up one instance where, when they were talking about housing, which was actually a separate part of the conference, they put up all these Republican-led pending legislation pieces. But the things that I thought, and I could tell when I raised my hand and asked a question, and you heard a lot of oh yeah. Some people even, kind of lightly clapped. One of our biggest problems is, LLCs buying up, properties and, jacking up rents and so forth and not pulling permits and, the whole gamut of things that happen. If we had home rule, there were some ideas that had come out in the State House that would have been wonderful. Can't get it through the State House, would have been nice to have it here, but we can't do that because, again, either state law or just that phrase, power of statewide concern seems to supersede anything that happened here. So that was one, it was interesting, but it was, so it's the amended version. But, unfortunately, that the home rule talk was mostly bad news. Anybody else want to comment on?
Go ahead. I was pleasantly surprised that one of my Ohio municipal clerks, fellow clerks from Montgomery, Ohio, did a presentation with her city manager, I believe it was, on a program they've been doing about surrounding mental health. Specifically, they started within the city employees, but they've kind of taken it, branched it out to the community. And it was a really interesting program. They had a lot of great information out there. The program they're using is really designed to kind of end the stigma of talking about workplace stress, which nobody likes to talk about, but is important to talk about. So it was a really good presentation.
I enjoyed that. And it was, I could tell just looking around the room that people were like, yeah, that happens where I work, that happens in my city.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Eddie's a rock star down there. I mean, everybody knows her it's just so funny to see you in your, like with your peeps, It's a sorority. It's funny. I never really thought about this, but are there?
I think there are 3 maybe male clerks in the Ohio Municipal Clerks Association, one of whom was there, but
Yeah.
it's mostly females.
Yeah.
I would like to add to that too, that the people who presented this session on workplace wellness and personal wellness as well, right? They strategized as they expanded the program. For instance, if they were looking at public safety officers, like fire department and police departments, they knew that that is historically a place where people are not willing to step up and put themselves out there, that they may be having issues, mental health issues. So they took it as, if you are in a situation where someone that you've been charged with picking up to take to the hospital, or that's in a crime situation, that how do you handle that? So they didn't, for that particular group of people, to begin with, they made it professional. And then as they got more comfortable, they actually opened up more about their personal feelings of stress at work. And I just thought these 2 ladies, grassroots, did a marvelous job of expanding to now. I think they're taking advantage of national programs and everything, so they were just amazing.
And I like the idea of learning too, that when it comes to planning and development, the first place to start is with our codes. Codes.
Yeah.
Update the codes first before you start to try to get into a lot of development, because that's what
Zoning.
you're right, zoning, because of a lot of developers are gonna be asking about code and zoning and what they can do. So we had a wonderful talk with Mayor University.
Hey, Brandon.
Oh.
Mayor Brennan.
Brennan, yeah.
Yes, regarding codes and zoning, and he had some information that he's gonna share with me, so that was some good information and a place to start when it came to planning and development, so.
And we went around the vendors. The vendors were great.
Oh my gosh, we have some vendors, so Eric, when we get an opportunity, hopefully we get an opportunity, I want to share some of the information that Addie and I went around and picked up for planning and development, and see what we can look into. And they have some some information regarding lighting as
Lighting.
well.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, so that.
You were all about that.
Keyed in.
Yeah, the lighting and tiny homes, zoning.
City Hall redesign.
City Hall redesign, definitely there's someone there who actually does,
And they're right down the road.
and they're from Cleveland, yes. So they do City Hall redesigns as well. And hotels, we found someone who does actually who will build hotels, and you don't have to be on a thoroughfare where a highway is close to, so, yeah.
And they had one session called Home Economics, examining the dynamics of Ohio's municipal income tax during a telecommuting transition. That was a mouthful. And the thing, okay, so 14% of people work from home, 30% are hybrid now. When I raised my hand and talked about Cleveland Heights demographics, and this is, somebody, I forget who the speaker was, but they said that it gives us a net plus. I don't know if Director Schuster, she's still here, but I don't know if she would agree with this, but they said our demographics give us a net plus for working from home in Cleveland Heights, based on the fact that, we don't have like any big industries like that. And so that was good news. And then, I don't know, there's a lot to talk about, and I don't know how interesting this would be for people watching, but
If anyone wants the materials, I can send them.
yeah, lots of materials, a lot of good sessions. I didn't attend the marijuana session. Did anybody?
I was there for it. It went over basically what I think we've already done. I think a lot of people are behind the 8 ball. I think we're kind of ahead of the 8 ball on that, so that put us in a good position.
Yeah, I agree.
So, because it was at the same time as the public records
Public records
training, and I gotta tell you, it's a different thing doing it the second time. You know, because now you're not like, it's not like this, here are these things that could happen or might happen, or that you kind of, these are now that you've experienced the job a bit more, it's like, I would just highly recommend it. It's just a different intake. Because you can plug it into all these things that happen. You know, even just the definitions of what a public record is, and it was interesting listening to people from other cities, and I gotta look at you, Mr. Law Director, because I don't know, I got a kick out of this. These people would say our law, they just kept saying over and over again, our law director doesn't know anything. Because this was put on by the auditor, and the auditor, not the auditor, but
Already
the
don't like
auditor's
those
office.
people,
You know, but these were like assistant, auditors and so forth. But they would always say, well, did you ask your law director? And it, it's always the steady refrain of, and he doesn't know anything. So, well, ours does. Ours knows stuff. So it's really good news.
Keep in mind, sometimes that means you're not getting the answer you want. They must not know anything.
Hey, you know what? I want to hear whatever it is.
I did have one comment if you're done. I didn't want to interrupt.
Please.
I wasn't there, but I would just say that home rule is not dead. It's still a very live, very powerful Ohio constitutional amendment, Article 18, Section 3. But it is true that the courts have pushed back, tried to see how they can rein it in and make it seem more like our powers are statutory. But it is still a real thing. It's something we need to jealously guard and protect.
Yeah,
I think that was the point of their whole thing.
Yeah,
Yes, it was.
I mean, they certainly were there to tell us we're here for you and advocate.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I got the kind of impression of life support.
There's a lot of depressing stories over the last 10, 15 years.
And they told a few, and they were depressing.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah. Okay, so we should move on. We're doing actually okay, but let's keep it going. So ARPA update. Chris Herzl, you want to move to the table or not really?
It's your call.
Well,
I think we're gonna have, I think Chris and Eric are both gonna be sort of walking through a lot of this.
oh, okay.
So and certainly got 2 chairs at the table again.
Come on up.
Sure.
Well, I guess first to do we want to start?
Oh, sure. If everybody's Stramp or. So we
Once you
wanted
put a
to,
picture up.
we wanted to use the opportunity while we're talking about ARPA to give you an update on the Stramp project and some changes to the design that are being made. Just as a reminder, top right picture is that existing condition today with that really steep pathway going down into the park. And so the original Stramp project was there to improve that access point and also to create a place at the top of the hill, the sledding hill, where currently people like myself have to just pretty much stand while their children sled down the hill. So you allocated $1.5 million of ARPA funds towards that project. And you see on the bottom left is that original concept. Well, as the surveying and engineering started to take place, a couple of things popped up, a couple of issues, and that's because King Park is in a bowl. So topography is a really big issue, and that design in reality had a tremendous impact on the hillside to the point where it would, number one, take out most of the trees, and number two, make that hillside unstable or have an impact on the synagogue property. So engineers sort of looked at shifting it away from the hill, but that of course then impacts the sledding hill. So we challenged our engineering team, and they've sort of The Stramp still exists, but it's in two parts. Keep the seating on the hillside, which is on the left part of the slide here, and then do the ADA portion of it on the right side.
So it's the northeast and southeast corners of the park against Taylor Road there.
So you can see the seating would still be on the hill, people would be able to watch their kids sled, or we could do events there. There would be the sledding section in the middle and a connectivity path between that, and then the actual sort of ADA ramp, which has to go back and forth because of how steep the topography is. But there's an advantage to that because you see on the sort of bottom right of that image is that's the first set of stairs that are off of Superior that are actually quite outdated now. They're not in good condition. So this is an opportunity to create a landing point there and redo those stairs. So just before I answer any questions, the idea is the mayor tonight in your council session will ask for the authority to go out to bid when the engineering is completed, and then we hopefully have a contract by the end of the year.
Sure.
By using the switchback design, does that change the grades to make it even less steep, or is it still the same grade?
Absolutely, yeah, because right now.
Does it look pretty steep from the
Exactly.
first design?
Yeah, so this would meet ADA standards, which means that it would be a much more gradual slope.
Yeah.
So it's not just for people in wheelchairs, it's for others.
So when people sled down the hill, how do you keep them from going into the Stramp?
So the ramp portion, the switchback portion,
Can you go back to the other
well,
slide?
you won't.
The other one's kind of
Yeah.
misleading it,
Okay,
Yeah,
because
So
that's
this
no
is
longer.
this is the old, sort of the old rendering.
yeah.
In the new version, the switchback piece is on that sort of southern end.
Yeah,
And on that hillside, which is not in conflict with the sledding hill in any way. The hillside seating section is far enough to the north that it shouldn't be either. But we also anticipate possibly sloping the seating into the hillside itself and then landscaping to allow for some separation so
I
that you have
see.
less of that concern.
so if, let's say the Stramp is here, the topography would be sloped down so that you wouldn't go up into it. It would kind of keep you from going towards it.
So in the middle where the sledding hill
Yes.
is, what we would anticipate is that the landscape design, once the hillside seating is created, the landscape design along the southern edge of the hillside seating will
Serve as a
make it
buffer.
less, serve as a buffer, to
Okay.
buffer that seating from the sledding.
I think I get it.
Am I understanding correctly that the Stramp as initially proposed, that we are no longer looking at, but instead we are looking at a set of hillside seats that do not include ramps on the northeastern part of the park. And then near the intersection of, is that Superior
Yeah.
and Taylor, we have the switchback ramps to ensure that ADA accessibility that was originally intended for the Stramp. But the Stramp itself will no longer exist as initially envisioned. Is that in essence the changes that?
Basically,
Okay.
yeah, the physical reality of the site just didn't
Right.
match up to our hopes and dreams for the strength.
Yep. Do we think that it'll cost the same amount? I think that it was 1.5 million okay, so no more than.
I think the expectation is that it could that there may be a little bit of extra money left to do some things like
Along Taylor.
building that connectivity along Taylor Road
Okay.
because of less concrete.
Well, wasn't part of the ADA accessibility to be an entrance to the park
Yeah.
from not just the Stramp or the
Yeah.
switchback?
Sort of the idea and the goal was to create both a landing space for
From
a
Taylor.
connection from, the business district that we will be revitalizing, and sort of creating a connection between that business district and the synagogue property with the park itself. And we wanted to make sure that we kept that functionality but we also wanted to make sure that we kept the sort of easier entryway into the park as well. And we're hoping that we can connect both sides of that park between the hillside seating and sort of that landing pad at Taylor and the switchback portion of this project.
I'm assuming that we're going to have to take out some trees for the ramp. Do we have any idea how many we might have to take out?
We do, was it something like 10 maybe?
I don't remember. I thought the survey was still
Well,
underway.
we're in sort of preliminary, so we don't have exact numbers, but I think the estimate was relatively
It's
small.
not a giant number, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of those trees are relatively scrubby over there.
Right.
And the other benefit, and this is something that has been complained about with Kane Park for a very long time. Part of the reason why, people drive by and they don't even realize it's there sometimes is because the view sheds into the park have been so restricted by dense overgrowth. We don't manage that hillside very well when it comes to people being able to see into the park. And it creates some challenges with regard to getting people into the park because of just seeing that it's there and seeing what's being offered there. But secondly, it's a security concern. And it's even more than that, it's a perception of security concern. And so when you are sort of cut off and you can't see in and you can't see out, it creates a different perception of the park. And that's been something that people have complained about consistently for years.
Two questions. I mean, it looks like this design retains the existing basketball court.
That's another benefit, yeah.
And that's
Because
it.
we were concerned with the original sort of, once we got into the design phase that, I know I announced this, that there was the possibility that we might have to shift that as a part of this project. But I think with this design, it does not have that impact. So we can maintain the current amenities until we, have a real well thought out plan for Kane Park if we were to change anything.
So what about skateboard access on this? Is there any kind of protection to, like, it looked like the Stramp would have been an ideal place to play on your skateboard with.
Well,
And really wreck it, and grind away everything. So do we have any kind of, is that?
I would say the hillside seating is likely not a very good place to skateboard. So I'll make that clear. It wouldn't be because of the grass between the steps. It's not a sort of a pure concrete
Okay.
slab. The switchback ramps, and we had conversation about the design here with regard to people on bicycles, skating, skateboarding, those sorts of things. Right now, current state, either the north side trail or the southern trail are both more dangerous when it comes to pedestrian interaction with, say, cyclists on those trails, because the cyclists can just, in a straight shot, go down a relatively steep hill on either side. And if there are pedestrians walking on those, that could be a bit more dangerous now than it would be with the switchback design, where it would allow for a little bit of area for people to step off of the trail and sit potentially, but also it requires that people using, wheels to transport themselves down, like on a bicycle, would have to slow down in order to make those turns.
Do you need to follow
The traffic calming.
do you have to follow all the standards, like a 10-foot path to get?
I believe we're doing,
I think we're doing an
8-foot
because
path
that's what's currently
Or
starts out
consistent.
there, yeah, and the ADA consultant, Mayor, has confirmed that that's acceptable.
but we are investigating in those switchback locations, providing some buffer to allow for wider turning radius for people who may have mobility issues.
And the grade there will be only 5% maximum, so skateboarders may not find that all that exciting.
You seem to be really into this, to say.
Didn't know I was a geek.
No, but it's kind of cool that this is a beautification effort and love it.
So just one thing to note, you mentioned skateboarding. The city recently received a grant, I think for $390,000 for Kane Park, in part for a skate park. So
Still have a place to go.
while this may not be a great place to do that, part of this other grant
Yeah.
is dedicated to that.
When we first started talking about STRAMP, we were talking about parking for handicap vans, that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that during the streetscaping design, there will be at least one or two spots for accessibility for folks who would need to have a van.
I think that's probably a big benefit to the work that we're gonna be doing on the streetscaping with the TLCI
Right.
project. And also, I think, didn't we get federal grant from,
Well, we're waiting
yeah,
for Congress.
waiting for Congress. So not an allocation, we're just waiting for Congress to actually, do the work, pass it.
Thank
And so that's for road, project in that area as well, which is really fortunate for us. So I don't know, I'm not gonna, going out on a limb a little bit here, but thank you very much to Senator Sherrod Brown for his support on that project.
So that's our update on the STRAMP and ARPA project, and now we have more mundane updates on this.
Well, you say mundane, but I would say we've gotten quite a few questions about some of this in the recent past, and that has to do with the revenue replacement legislation. So on the 18th, we're planning on having before council legislation that will be transferring. I'm using these terms lightly, I am not an accountant, but basically what we'll be doing is transferring $4.125 million of ARPA money to a general fund. Now, really, strictly speaking, it's an allocation of expenses from payroll, but the idea is we are using $4.125 million of ARPA funds to pay out eligible payroll expenses as revenue replacement. And then what we'll be doing is using that surplus, Tara didn't want me to use that word, but it's basically converted revenue replacement dollars to cover expenses of programs that will necessarily need to continue beyond 2026. Specifically, and these will be named in the legislation, these are the lead-safe Healthy Homes exterior repair, the HPO home repair, the driveways and miscellaneous concrete repairs, garages and trees, and then the business assistance that isn't part of the 300,000. And there are some other miscellaneous ones that will all be spelled out in the legislation. And so we will have that portion finally locked in. And then at that point, maybe just a couple other pieces of legislation, and that'll ultimately be what we need to get everything encumbered by the end of the year.
So what happened to it was like 8 to 10 million before, now it's.
So that's the total revenue replacement allocation for the city.
Okay, but we've done some and this is what's left.
Yeah, so
Got it.
Tara is in the process of identifying basically $4.15 million in salaries that ARPA funds can be used
Yeah.
to pay out of revenue replacement. And so what that does is it creates the effect of creating converted revenue replacement dollars that are currently in the general fund that can be used to fund projects beyond the deadline, the expenditure deadline for ARPA.
And I take it all those projects will require council approval.
Yeah, and most of them already have, but we will be coming to council for the approval of the expenditures per 179/2023.
Right.
Will the legislation on November 18th be approval requested first reading? Or will we be seeing it for a second reading in December?
I would say approval first reading, just because we don't want to wait 30 days for it to become effective, because we want to be.
What we could do is put it on for emergency and still give it 2 readings if that's what council prefers.
Well, I honestly am concerned about those folks, the lead testing contractors who are waiting for payment.
Well, and part of the reason that would be included in this, and
Yes.
that's why we're
Just
hopeful.
part of the reason for first reading
Yes.
passage with emergency effect.
That's what I would like to see myself,
The
but
council can get there.
Yeah, I mean, we can't make a decision in this room about it, but I understand why we would do it that way.
I would just ask that you get us that piece of legislation in advance of our packets as
Yes.
soon as it's ready to go, so we have time to study it, and if we have questions, we can get them to you.
Certainly, and the only reason that we wanted to have it prepared for today, but we actually, and talking about it with Director Schuster, we need to have a corresponding budget adjustment to come along with it, because for the purposes of just our books, we need to show what is being done with the funds that are coming in and how those are being allocated. And we're on the verge of knowing how exactly we want to handle that, because ideally, we would also be petitioning council to create a fund for those revenue replacement dollars that are being carried over, so that that 4.125 million doesn't have to be appropriated in every single departmental account. It can just go into a carryover ARPA account that will be used to fund all these projects.
Can we also get, and I believe Director Schuster mentioned that this was available, a spreadsheet that sort of details all the various projects, all the appropriations with the total number of what the total ARPA amount is, the 31 million or 32 million, whatever it was.
Yeah, 38.
That 30, okay, that just sort of details everything and what has been appropriated, what hasn't been appropriated yet, just so we can see just sort of like the big picture, as opposed to all the pieces and parts. We've received this in the past, and maybe it was delivered to council in the meeting I wasn't at because I was traveling, but I would certainly like to see it at this next round. So an appropriate time for it.
Petrus?
That's what I was going to ask for, but just to clarify, some like text in there as well to explain like the status for some of those things would be helpful as well, not just numbers. So similar to what was shared earlier, that was very helpful for us, so it'd be great to see.
Certainly.
That's good. Anything else? Assistant Director Herzl?
That's all right.
Whatever. No,
It's at a certain point, you know,
all right.
39 years in,
I know.
I'm used to it. No, that's all I have for you, I believe.
Well, thank you, all of you. This was enlightening, and we're making progress, and it's a boatload of work for the law department, I know that. So we have one last tear-jerking presentation here. This is the Coventry Peace Pop. If you've never been to this, it's kind of a cool thing that they do quarterly at Peace Pops. I see Brady's here. So I don't know, a few of us attended it. I don't even remember who. I remember Davida was there and Jim Petrus, yeah. So there's Robin Van Leer, who started Parade the Circle, and she does all these wonderful costumes. And they're gonna do that in December, and it's called the Lantern Festival. So you'll see some of her work there. And then you see Matt Moore, who's the executive director of the Coventry CID, and Amy Rosenbluth from Lake Erie Inc. And there's Vice President Russell with a couple of her peeps. And there's another Robin Van Leer creation. And then they had this whole room, the haunted house room. Brady was there a lot. I noticed you hanging out there a lot. People wrote on there. It's just some beautiful, beautiful artwork. I mean, this is just one example of just, I mean, if you go upstairs, it's endless, great, really great artwork, all for sale. They always have a band, which I love. And there's Robin and I can't remember that guy that takes pictures. What's his name?
Gabe Schaefer?
Yeah, Gabe Schaefer, right. And more Robin, lots of Robin Van Leer. And let's see. Yeah, just more. You can see a lot of people were there. That's just one small part of. They were doing some line dancing at one point, and there was a woman that actually instructs people. Yeah. And here we go. This will give you the full effect. Some of them were This is my Thank God it was only 30 seconds because, so I knew the drummer and the bass player, that those are two guys I know, like John Stiebel and Lenny Gray. This guitar player was like unbelievable. I don't know him, but it was like and then the soprano sax. Don't ask. Anyway, that's what else we got? This is other shots. Davida had a steadier hand.
Play a little bit behind also.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this.
That was amazing.
Is it in the basement?
The gym.
Jim.
So everybody went and like signed.
Oh my God, here's a
Yes, the 3D is live. Yes.
okay. Whoa,
I don't know why she remembers it.
what a different look.
Put on 3D glasses.
Wow. I wonder.
Yeah, you need the dual spectrum.
Try to put on.
I don't think it'll work with the film because you have to have two eyes to see.
Yeah.
Adaptable.
Right,
For people who have disabilities.
Yeah, but in terms of like programming and stuff, so
Oh, no.
I have to now find a place to do that.
Big ghost.
And, you know, we just looked at a place in East.
All right, you gonna say something? Come on, say something. Come on, say something else. It's the last of something.
Well, see you at Lantern Fest.
There you go. All right.
And we want alumni too, Coventry Elementary School alumni to come to the Lantern Fest, December 14th.
All right.
Here, Coventry.
So your
There you
public
go.
service announcement from Christoph. Anyway, thank you. Wonderful people from, and you know, we have supported a lot of the nonprofits with ARPA money and you know, we'll miss them, but we know that our planning department is actually helping, you know, give them ideas for relocation, you know, so we're all about keeping them here in Cleveland Heights. And we got a few minutes left if anybody has anything under other. Councilman Cobb?
Yes, Mr. President. I've asked Addie to circulate. We have 8 applications for the Fair Practices Board. At the last Administrative Services Committee, we talked about them. At our next Committee of the Whole, we're going to have an executive session to go over the applications and hopefully move by the end of the year to get 3 people appointed plus an alternate. We have some really good applications to take a look at, so Addie will get those out.
Yeah, and it'd be good if, you know, we could have a good idea. We walk into the meeting on November 18th, you know, that we could maybe move these forward. Anything else? Go to the order, as they say. All right, this meeting is adjourned at 7:25.